In this video, I want to talk a little bit about addictions. Most people have a limited understanding of addictions, and there's often a lot of stigma. When people say addictions, they typically think of a heavy drug like cocaine or heroin or smoking or alcohol. So it has this negative stigma to it. A lot of us know that, well, you can be addicted to almost anything. You can be addicted to your emotional state, which most of us are in one way or another. Of course, all the different substances, but also to our phone and internet and the services provided on the internet. They can all be addictive to the brain. But what's important to understand is, well, what's the underlying cause of the addiction? What is motivating the behavior? And usually it's a way to cope. People are trying to cope with their pain, with their mental pain, emotional, spiritual, and sometimes physical pain, or all of the above. And rather than going deep and dealing with the underlying issue, they naturally use addictions, a substance or some other thing, to distract themselves from how they're feeling, from that underlying pain. Use other words: discomfort, frustration, anxiety, hopelessness, helplessness, depression, all these things that encompass and manifest negative emotions due to those beliefs in different states of mind. So we need to be compassionate about addictions. We need to understand that we need to reduce the amount of stigma associated with addictions and realize that practically all of us are addicted to something in one way or another. For example, the cell phone. How often do people pick up their phone in a run of a day? Some people hundreds of times. And a lot of times it is a distraction from the present moment, from being present with yourself, from truly feeling our feelings and emotions in the present moment, from our thoughts that we have of discomfort, from important activities and productivity that we may ideally should be doing to progress our lives in one way or another, and maybe the pain of an awkward conversation. So many people have social anxieties that are deep. One big cause of addictions that many people are not deeply familiar with is shame. And Tim Fletcher calls shame, it's a complex trauma. So with shame, usually it often originated in childhood through our needs not being met. If we were ignored, if we were rejected, if we didn't get consistent affection, if those core needs of a child, which many of us don't understand and most parents don't fully understand the consequences of, when a child's needs are not consistently met, then oftentimes the emotionally get a condition to believing, right? Their thoughts, their cognitive prefrontal cortex is not developed at that point, but emotionally they get the image that they're not worthy as a person, or they're not good enough somehow. And this eventually forms into complex, definitely very complex trauma. In other words, shame. And shame, as Tim Fletcher talks about, shame is a core belief system about who we are, our identity. And emotions manifest and come out of that identity. And typically, usually all feelings and emotions, they start with a thought. But oftentimes our mind is so racing so rapidly, and we're not fully conscious of a lot of these unconscious thoughts and beliefs that formed over our whole lifetime. So we don't understand what we feel, we don't understand what the emotion, we don't even know, not fully cognizant and aware of what we're thinking. So that's the power, to go off on a tangent for a second, that's the power of meditation and being mindful and sitting still with yourself and just noticing what's happening in our mind, and then journaling about it, seeing a therapist, talking with a trusted friend and family member, make sure somebody you can trust, to talk about the things we're thinking and feeling, to have more deeper self-understanding. And that is one pathway in itself to help some people overcome their addictions, if their level of consciousness and if their willingness is there to proceed in that direction, and to learn to eventually deal with potential shame that they may have that they're not even aware of. So if you're avoiding social groups, if you're having a deep feeling of you're fundamentally wrong as a person, that you're not good enough, that you're bad, for some reason you're bad, even though there's no real recent evidence of that, then that's complex. It's a high probability that that's linked to some sort of shame, to reiterate, which is an identity, a belief system, and a lot of emotions that come out of that, and thoughts like I'm not good enough, which in other words, shame, the belief that you're not adequate as a person. So going back to addictions, this should give us a lot of compassion and self-compassion for all of us that are going through some form of addiction. And the hard pathway forward is consciousness and mindfulness, is learning about human nature, learning about psychology, seeing a therapist, getting help, learning to be vulnerable, being conscious and aware of things that we're avoiding in the day. If we're avoiding social groups, which I personally do sometimes, and I'm working on, if we avoid encountering certain people, well, you don't want to jump in the deep end. You want to incrementally inch one step at a time and start off with what's easy and what's most safest first. Like seeing a therapist, talking with a trusted friend or family member. That's the place to start. You wouldn't jump in with your worst enemy, or if you come from a very difficult family that you find emotionally difficult, whether it's objectively true or not, you wouldn't just jump in to seeing them again regularly if that's causing you a lot of pain and hardship. That's kind of the deeper end. You want to inch and work your way towards that, and hopefully one day you'll be able to face all life situations and own your worth and not get triggered so much, and learn to, when you do get triggered, learn to consciously catch it and choose your behavior through your use of your magnificent prefrontal cortex. So going back to addictions, I've discussed in this video that addictions are a way to cope with deeper underlying thoughts, feelings, and emotions, deep underlying core identities, and of course other forms of trauma that may have occurred to us over our lifetime that we may or may not be aware of, and the consequences that they had on us psychologically, emotionally, how we adapted to dealing with an overwhelming event that overwhelmed the nervous system and changed our brain somehow, which resulted in changes in our behavior, our beliefs, and our how we react, our responses to a stimuli in the environment that may trigger and remind us of a memory where we were overwhelmed by a certain situation that became a trauma. And those two fundamentally can be healed. I'm not saying it's easy, but it's a similar process of slowly going back to the trauma if you're capable emotionally, and reducing the amount of emotional charge around it, freeing up some of that energy so that it can go back into your heart and your brain in a healthy way where it belongs. And a lot of people with addictions, of course, are coping with those feelings from trauma and complex trauma, childhood trauma, that they're using it to cope. And it's complicated. A lot of people don't understand the root line causes. I don't think anyone fully understands every bit of the traumas and every consequence of their lifetime development. But there is a way, and there is hope and faith, and I wish for all of us progress, and that we become a more holistic, more whole human being, and that we're able to have more joy, more enjoyment, more love, less fear, less hopelessness, more ability to go in any social situation and enjoy, ability to talk with anyone without feeling inferior or without having the belief that you're going to be rejected. I wish that for all of us, and that we reduce our negative addictions and we take control of our life so that we're fully present, more moments of our life and positive emotions, that we're able to thrive, meet all our needs and all our dreams as a human being. Until next time, I hope this is helpful for you, and it's not comfortable conversation. Dealing with emotions is not easy. Coping through distractions, like always going to your cell phone or whatever your addiction is might be easier in the short term, but it's not the best for the long term. Bye-bye.